What you are about to see is a story 4 decades in the making, told by 3 kids, your 3 kids. And like most stories, it contains a little comedy, a little tragedy. And like most accounts, some of it may or may not be 100% accurate. That's not to say we're liars. Quite frankly, a lot of the stories we're about to present to you were presented to us secondhand. In other words, we weren't there. That said, any embellishments or inaccuracies are unintended. So with that in mind, if while you are watching this you notice something that you believe is patently false, we kindly ask you to save it. Nobody likes to know it all, and more importantly, nobody likes it when the person next to them talks during a movie. What we would like you to do, however, is just sit back and enjoy the show. Years. You'd be surprised what you can pack in them. A lifetime, really, measured in pictures, memories. Ball games, school plays, picnics in the park. You see, 27 hours ago, our father and mother brought forth a new family, conceived in love, and dedicated to the proposition that all 5 in it were created to keep that love going. At this Pittsburgh address, that mother and father, rather mom and dad, would create their masterpiece. What follows is that story.
Did you see Jackie Robinson hit that ball? It went zooming across the left field wall. Yeah, boy! Yeah, Jack.
In 1947, post-war America kept changing. Jackie Robinson broke baseball's color barrier. The sound barrier met a similar fate at the hands of test pilot Chuck Yeager. And President Harry Truman attempted to break the back of communism by signing the Truman Doctrine.
She lived in Hazelwood, Monongahela Street in Hazelwood.
And in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Alicia Hannaway made her own mark, the youngest of 4 sisters. The youngest of everybody on the street, really.
In Hazelwood, the whole street knew each other. I mean, you had the Fishers, and Mom said if anybody got yelled at on the street, they yelled all the kids, and anybody would get in trouble because they were all aunts and uncles.
In 1948, there was an historical exit when George Herman Ruth died of cancer at the age of 53. With one babe checking out, another checked in.
There was a boy, a very strange, enchanted boy.
Ray Henry, born December 14th in Gardner, Massachusetts.
He was the only boy with all those girls.
I always remember him talking about, family vacations, fishing with Pepe, the winters that they had.
22 months apart in age and 20 years from their first meeting, Mom and Dad lived seemingly parallel lives.
They both came from very similar backgrounds, so family was always an important part of everything that they did, and I think that's kind of how that shaped them to be our parents, really.
To know Dad, you need only look at the caption beneath his senior yearbook photo. Good speller, French scholar, and avid TV watcher. That would never change. Mom, on the other hand, found more adventurous pursuits, at least once.
Alicia Hannaway.
The world's greatest woman water skier enthralled the spectators with her dramatic ballet, Nautique.
She was an avid water skier. She did it one time, she said, and so she had nothing to put in her yearbook, so they put water skier. She's an avid water skier. Did you know that?
Pull out of Pittsburgh, rolling down the eastern seaboard.
Strapping on skis takes guts, but Mom would dig deeper when in 1967 she packed the car and hit the road, barely 20.
She was the baby, so for her to leave home was a really big deal because Mom never left Pittsburgh. So for her to go out on her own to D.C. was a big deal.
It's a trip Dad had made years earlier.
And then he talks about whenever they moved to Virginia and how not only necessary it was for Pepe to take a job down there, but you know, when they moved down there, they had some good memories.
And more were just around the corner.
He graduated young age, 17, went straight to work. He was a baby when he got out of school.
Dad's first job out of high school, licensed badass. It was part-time work. His first full-time work took him just a few miles from home, the Pentagon, working in the Defense Department. He was there on Mom's first day.
I remember when Dad says that he first laid eyes on Mom that he knew that she was the one.
She didn't have any brothers, so he was funny, but I think he was smitten with her first.
And that makes me laugh because that's kind of how we all are. We're all kind of there to make people laugh right from the start and try to make people feel comfortable. And that's since Dad was the vet at the Pentagon and Mom was the newbie, that seems typical to me, that's the way that would be. So how do you get to know someone who you don't know but you'd like to get to know?
Come on to my house, I'm gonna give you candy. Come on to my house, I'm gonna give you apple, plum, and apricot.
Daddy had a party. He was having a party, inviting friends.
He didn't want to go on a first date. He didn't have the cojones to basically ask her out, so he set up a party at the house and invited her over.
I think he had this party with the intention of getting to know Mom.
And apparently he made a pretty good impression because then they had a first date. Now that first date was a movie, which is typical, and they decided to go see the feel-good movie of the year.
Franco, VR, Death by Hanging.
The Dirty Dozen. Not a great first date movie, but a good movie nonetheless.
Come on, move! Come on, come on! Make it! It's gonna blow! Come on!
They're all about movies. They're all about TV, which is why I believe that Mom and Dad, it's a match made in heaven.
And they got married in St. Teresa's in Munhall and had their reception at Thompson Club in West Mifflin.
Everything was good. Two people taking on a life-changing experience in a world going through its own life-changing experiences.
There's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear.
They actually lived in Washington during probably one of the most crazy times in the history of the United States. They, you know, during the height of the racial inequalities with Martin Luther King's assassination, Robert Kennedy's assassination, I mean, and during the height of the Vietnam War. So it was really kind of cool to think that Mom and Dad, I don't know if they appreciate that they lived in Washington during that time.
The Eagle has landed. It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
July 20th, 1969, the world watched on TV when Neil Armstrong made his giant leap. Mom and Dad watched as they celebrated their own historic leap.
They were married a year and they went to Virginia Beach again after their one-year anniversary. And from the way Mom explains it, when they came home there was a draft notice in the mail. And Dad had to be shipped down to Georgia for basic.
He went to Fort Benning. I know Mom was pregnant with me and she missed him. I know that because she said that, you know, she'd get upset stomachs, but she'd have a beer to calm herself down. And back then she's pregnant with me, so now we all know why I like beer.
It's 754 miles from Falls Church, Virginia to Fort Benning, Georgia. By today's speed standards, you could make it in just a hair under 13 hours if you didn't stop. Mom did it in a blue Chevy Nova.
I can't see myself driving down to Georgia at 7 months pregnant, but she did because she missed him.
And with a tour in Vietnam a strong possibility, Mom stood to miss Dad a whole lot more. But other orders came in for Germany.
That was a big deal. I was going to be born in Germany. But it didn't happen because the orders got changed.
Dad would end up back where he started, stationed in Virginia, but more changes were on the way. A bigger family, a bigger home, and bigger challenges.
Lucky you're a girl who likes children. That's an important sign. Lucky, 'cause I'd love to have children. Small world, isn't it?
We lived in an apartment off of Glebe Road in Falls Church. And I was born in '71, and we lived in that apartment, and we have home movies of Christmases, of Easter, of a whole bunch of stuff. You know, living in Virginia, it was just not cutting it. I mean, working at the Pentagon was just not cutting it. It wasn't paying the bills, and so Mom felt the pull of home, so we moved back home.
Giant plants convert iron into finished steel for bridges and skyscrapers, pipelines and ships, all the thousands of things our world depends on.
And with a family of 4 now depending on him, Dad found work at U.S. Steel. For Mom, it was back where she belonged, closer to her family. Maybe too close at first.
We lived in Grandma and Pap's house for 6 months, and I think it was that was plenty. I think it was time to get out of there. We bought the house on West Eugene, and that's where they've lived ever since. It cost $13,500 to buy that house back in the early '70s.
But the memories that would come with it would be priceless.
Little girls and little boys dream of worlds full of toys this time of the year when Christmas is near.
So when Christmas came along, Mom and Dad went all out.
They put the fun in Christmas, but with fun came rules. Call them the Christmas morning rules.
Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb.
We couldn't go downstairs. If we were up at 3 o'clock in the morning, we had to lay there until we thought, you know, is it okay to get Mom and Dad? Because Dad had to go downstairs and make sure Santa came.
There was a time when Dad's business was doing really well, and we got a computer that year. We played with that computer until it died. I played with that computer for a week after Christmas without bathing. I mean, where's Kevin? Follow the smell of cheese, and it will lead you to the computer.
And regardless of how much money Mom and Dad made, which was never a lot, for some reason, Christmas was a big deal, and they always seemed to make it a big deal.
But one year in particular, Christmas almost never came.
1991 stunk. You start off, you know, first of all, Mom and Dad. Mom was making maybe a little bit over $25,000 a year at Continental. Dad's printing business was tanking, the recession. George Bush was in office.
Not having a Christmas was not going to happen. This cheerful streak would continue no matter what.
Kevin and I were working. We were older. Scotty helped out. And I remember that was the year Kevin went and worked with Rusty. We all remember Rusty. But he worked a lot of nights.
Mom and Dad went to bed very early. They were depressed. They were heartbroken that they weren't going to give their kids, who were all but grown, a Christmas.
I believe we put a card on there or something, and they opened up, and all I remember is I heard crying, and it was Dad. And they say, I just remember them saying, what did they do? What did they do? And we went downstairs, and we had the candy canes, and we had the music playing, and we had the tree lit, and presents.
I'm going to do my best impression of the VCR. You'd stick a movie, 10 minutes into it, it would go wah, 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 wah. And then the tape would pop out. We were hell-bent, if anything, we were going to get a VCR for Christmas. And damned if we didn't.
And I just remember the look of shock and happiness on Mom and Dad's face when they came down Christmas morning and we gave them what they gave us for years.
That was the best Christmas ever.
I'm gonna take 2 weeks, gonna have a vacation.
Mom and Dad did the best that they could with vacations, and again, the memories that we have are pretty cool.
Well, I called the congressman and he said, quote,
the first vacation that I have a clear memory of was we went to SeaWorld in Geauga Lake.
But Shamu and Namu weren't the reasons for the memory, rather the stay at the Ramada.
Dad, in his infinite wisdom, instead of taking the cooler down to the ice machine, took the little ice bucket that you fill up with ice, and I just remember him acting like a kid, just acting like a kid. He was so, you know, just kept running back and up and down the hall and up and back and down the hall, filling up the cooler with ice, and he was just acting like a goofy kid.
Is Pittsburgh's beautiful airport terminal.
But it was a subsequent vacation when that goofiness would rise to a whole new level. A plane ride to California was coming, and Dad would get his chance to make his celluloid mark.
Ironically, the reason we went out there is because Meme and Pepe were celebrating their 40th anniversary.
The trip included everything, typical touristy stuff, Disneyland, Knott's Berry Farm, that kind of thing. But the stop came in Burbank, Universal Studios.
Dad's big thing was, I'm going to be in a movie. I'm going to Universal and I'm going to go on stage.
they're gonna put me in the movies. They're gonna make a big star out of me.
And damn if he didn't get on that stage. They picked him. And he played it to the hilt, as any Henry would. He was funny. And Aunt Marie was holding the camera, you know, laughing so hard.
And all I gotta do is act naturally.
Deep Creek's always been special to Mom and Dad. It's always been a special place for them.
Family vacations after Dad's big screen debut would be scaled back a bit as we went back to Deep Creek, a place from Mom's childhood, a place where we could just get away for a week and relax.
We had a little citation with 3 adult children, a dog, and everything we owned packed in that citation. Those are the vacations I remember with just the 5 of us and the dog. And they were good times. Jingles loved that place too.
Jingles is the rock of the family. I mean, you know, 18-year-old dog.
I think George Carlin once said, basically your life is just a series of dogs. In 1974, I think we got Jingles. It's just the cutest little black mutt, part poodle, part schnauzer, I think. Just the cutest little dog you've ever seen. And nobody has ever loved a dog as much as those two, and all of us really loved that dog. She would sit there and watch TV on her hind legs. A dog would come on TV, and there was Jingles, looking to get to meet that dog. Somebody would knock at the door, and Jingles was like she had a trampoline set up in front of the door. Doing, doing. It would scare the hell out of people that were at the door. They're like, "Holy shit!" You know, and they would, oh, what was that? It was the dog. It was Jingles. She was just greeting you. Mom and Dad said that they would never get another dog. They said they were done because 17 years with a perfect dog. Well, that didn't happen. April came along. She would zoom, get excited during Steeler games. You know, we'd score a touchdown, and April would get down in front of the TV and zoom around. That was just one of the things. Then she had an underbite. She had an underbite. It was real cute. Yeah, she loved apples. She was just a sweet dog. She was just a tiny little dog, mean, a little mean. She was a little feisty. She didn't have Jingles hair. She had a different personality. She was not Jingles, which is what set her apart. If a dog comes to our house, a dog has a good home.
The girls' basketball team of Steel Valley High School in Homestead, Pennsylvania is headed for the state championships later this month. Not so unusual.
In the spring of 1990, the whole country got to see the good home we had. when CBS Evening News came to town, doing a story on students graduating from high school and heading to college, rather than to jobs in the mill.
Somebody came from the guidance office and said, they picked about 10 kids, said, who are some of your 10 brightest seniors that would be good on camera? And I was one of the ones they picked.
I want to go to college and become famous, but
I said some things that just apparently knocked them off their feet. They were real impressed with what I had to say. And I think during that interview, it's like one of those big interviews you see on network TV, I had said something about my family and how I have such a close-knit family that is what really drives me to want to succeed. So I come home from school and Mom says something to the effect of, what the hell did you tell those people? And I said, what? And you know, Mom and Dad they don't know what to do with themselves. It's because CBS Evening News is coming to the house tonight, and we got to cook dinner, and they want to shoot us eating dinner, they want to interview us.
Our whole family's we're survivors.
The crew came over, watched us eat dinner, or should I say, watched us try to scarf it down.
Mom makes the most succulent chuck roast you have ever tasted in your life, but of course it all went to hell because none of us could eat because we were all tight.
But as we always do, we came through in the clutch, especially Dad, who delivered the soundbite that will live forever in the CBS and Henry family archives.
I want the best. I don't want these kids to have to struggle like we are. I want them to have what they want. But I'm glad they're seeing this because it's not easy.
Not too many people get to tell their story on national TV. Mom and Dad did.
It was Mom and Dad saying, Scott's going to college, Patty's going to college, Kevin's going to college. And it was just like, while they never came out and say so because they're humble, it was a badge of honor for them to say, look at what we did and look at our kids.
I think my biggest recollection of growing up, sports were huge. We were big Steeler fans growing up. Steeler Sunday was always big. Baseball, Pirate baseball, you know, lived and died by those playoff years.
He hacked to the 2-0, now the 2-1. Line drive and a base hit! Justice has scored the tying run. Bream to the plate, and he is safe! Safe at the plate! The Braves go to the World Series!
Kevin and I, we're just huge baseball fans. In fact, I think during 1991, during the 1992 playoffs, I think I almost blew my head off because of Sid Bream scoring that fatal play. That was horrible. Yeah.
There were happier times on the smaller fields, courts, and stages of play. And there, always there, Mom and Dad.
I was a starter, and they came to every game. I mean, we didn't miss a practice. I went to every game. Well, I hurt my knee, and I was out. Mom decorated my crutches. That's how involved she was. We had the crepe paper with the yellow and gold, and the other teams made fun of me when I came in the building. But, you know, once Maneater started playing, we were all into it. And I remember getting a trophy that year, the special dedication, because I went to every game and every practice, and I did not play, but I got a trophy. And when I think back, and this may sound a little corny, when I think back, that trophy didn't belong to me. It belonged to my parents.
From the start, if you were doing it, they were doing it. And I think that's the essence of team. From the time I was 8 and was terrible to the time I was 15 and finally won a championship, who was there every game? Every single game. And who was there with his little mini notepad keeping my every stat? And I remember when we won the championship, we came back and won it in the bottom of the 8th or something, and I will say it, I started the rally that won that game. And I scored the first run. And then when we finally scored and we won that game in the bottom of the 8th inning, in extra innings, everybody was screaming and jumping around and going nuts. And I remember Mom saying, I think I wet myself.
Mom and Dad always had the best interest for us at at school and always wanted us to succeed. Science projects, which, and basically Dad did them. I mean, we didn't do any of them. I mean, and we would just watch Dad do them. Get out of my light, get out of my light, I'll do this for you.
He wanted our projects to be good, and you say we didn't do them, but we learned from them. He may have done them, you know, the majority of it, but we learned from it. And to me, when I think back as a kid, that's how I bonded with my dad.
Take it back to Scrooge. When I found out that I had to memorize 137 lines, Mom and Dad took an interest in it from the start, and they made sure I knew all the lines. We would sit there with a tape recorder. This was before everybody had a video camera or a VCR for that matter. And we would audio tape us rehearsing. There was one time where we were rehearsing, and it's the scene where Marley visits Scrooge. And then Marley says what he needs to say, and then he goes away. So Dad says, is Marley, farewell, Scrooge. And in the background, a motorcycle drives by the house. So it's farewell, Scrooge, which was just funny. I mean, it was just happenstance, but that was funny. But those are the kind of things that conjure up memories of hey, remember when we were rehearsing that? And that there is the essence of Mom and Dad. They were there. They took such a vested interest in props, in performance, in everything. And that's the way it has always been.
When I was in 6th grade, Mom and Dad took me out of Catholic school and basically put me in public school in the middle of the year because they had some, I think tuition was getting high at St. Teresa's, but there was also some issues with Mrs. Slezak, that bitch. And I remember Mom and Dad taking me down there November 19th, 1989. And I remember that day. And I remember Mom and Dad just kind of looking at me like, I know you can do this. And I know this is tough, but I know you can do it. And, you know, I carry that everywhere I go. This sounds really kind of corny, but every business trip I go on, anywhere I go, I take that with me because they always had they always gave me the courage to do things on my own and be kind of a freelancer and just do things and not worry about anybody. And I remember my dad gave me the thumbs up sign. And he said, you're going to be fine.
Scott ended up fine. So did all of us. Each one married off, adding to the brood.
When I first met your whole family, it was just so unique to me that I would come over your house and you would all be together watching TV. And I just thought that was the neatest thing since I didn't have brothers and sisters. It was just such a nice family experience since I didn't really experience that growing up.
Busted flat in Baton Rouge, waiting for a train.
You guys were very affectionate. Made me a little uncomfortable. Kissed each other on their lips.
Just before it rained, and rode us all the way to New Orleans.
If I see if they can last a good 40 years, that gives us pretty good chances too.
Yeah, I think that's what you brought to the family. I think that's what you helped me become a better parent because of the foundations of your family. Yeah.
Anything to say to my mom and dad?
Yeah, sorry about the Janis job.
No.
Kind of.
Back when we were growing up,
we did everything as a unit.
These days, the unit's the same. It's just a little bigger.
Happy 40th anniversary. We love you so much.
Family's first with us, and I get that from them because it always has been.
And now, when we come home and we go to a ball game, it's now 14. We do everything still together. That, to me, is a legacy that you can hang your hat on.
With 5 grandkids and more on the way, Mom and Dad have all the love they need. But at the end of the day, when the lights go out, all they truly need is each other.
They're best friends. They don't have any other friends. Let's just be honest with that. They know that. I mean, their best friends are Barney Miller, Hawkeye, BJ, Andy Griffith. When I think about them and I think about all the stuff that they've been through, all the crap that they've been through, they've sustained it because of just because of their relationship, how strong it is. And they've been through some pretty rough times together. And through all that, they still have their sense of humor. And they still have the TV.
It's Ray and Alicia's little haven. And like I said, if they've got a TV, 2 recliners, and a movie, why bother? Don't call them when a movie's on. You think you're going to get their full attention? No.
To be with somebody for 40 years and still want to spend time with them all the time, I think that's awesome.
And when I would see people drop off their kids to baseball practice or the baseball game and then leave, I would thank my lucky stars that that wasn't me, because my parents were there. If I looked out in the right field at Troutman and didn't see 1, 2, 3 lawn chairs there, and see Dad with his pencil and his pad, and see Mom with her sunglasses on, sitting there watching the ball game, there would be an empty feeling. And I gotta be honest with you, I've had few empty feelings in my life. I don't think that a day goes by that I don't see one of them in myself.
Mom and Dad are strong, and they're my heroes. They truly are. They've surrounded themselves with love and with people that love them, and they certainly have taught me, and I know Kevin and Patty, about that love. And they've done a really good job, and they should be proud of themselves.
I thank them, and what I've gained from them is, you know, they were loving parents, and the way you do that is you love each other.